Good evening, everybody.
Hello, hello.
Welcome to another episode of Critique Corner with me, Daniel Parker.
And me, DB Fastbinder, the show where we review whatever the heck we felt like.
Yes.
Helping you find the buried diamonds in the rough of streaming and also just telling you what you can avoid.
Yes, indeed. And we got some, I don't know if we would, well, one of them, my solo review is definitely a diamond in the rough. Our other two, well, one of them kind of is, I guess.
We'll see. You'll see. You'll see.
Yeah, you'll see. Yes, yes.
Now, just as a quick point of order, because we stream on Thursdays and next week is Thanksgiving and we have other things going on, we are opting to not do a show next week. So happy holidays in advance to everyone.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, so we've got normally under normal circumstances we usually do like a classic review and then a new or newish review. Although this week we really pushed the new.
Yeah, I mean, Daniel's is from this year, at least his solo review.
Yeah.
The new quote unquote review, it's like, well, it's from this millennium, so it's good.
Yeah. It's only 20 years old. I mean,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But to kick things off, we're going to go with our quote unquote classic review.
Classic.
Yes, Midnight Run.
Yeah, this is one I hadn't ever really heard of before that I kept having recommended to me by Netflix. And on paper, it seems like it should be right up our alley because it's 80s, cheesy action, big name star, a star that I really only recognized when I realized that he was the dad from Beethoven in the form of Charles Grodin.
Yeah.
Starring opposite of Robert De Niro, who he's been in a couple of movies.
Yeah, he's been in a few things. Yeah,
it pops up here and there.
Yeah.
I don't know. But and honestly, I haven't had a lot of direct exposure to De Niro. I kind of know him as a force in pop culture more than an actor. So I said, well, sure, why not? Let's give this a go.
Yeah. And I had seen like other YouTube channels talking about it, like specifically like people who, talk about obscure movies that a lot of people have never heard of, or, just, kind of flew under a lot of people's radar. And on some of those channels, they gave this movie, a somewhat positive review, not a glowing, oh, this is a great hidden gem or whatever, but they were just like, it's they thought it was entertaining enough. But I will say for me, not so much.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I might have seen one of the scenes of this movie out of context because there's a bit where, and I'm going to just jump ahead and give no context for the scene, but the two of them are in a diner and the waitress is explaining what chorizo is to them. And that gave me such a strong sense of deja vu. And it's such a weird thing. Like, I don't know if there are just multiple action movies that have done that.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah.
For some reason, though, I have in my memory the guy asking what chorizo was and then being told they weren't having chorizo was wearing a hat. So maybe it was a thing that was done a couple of times. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. Yeah, or maybe like you could have could have been one of those things where you were watching TV and you were flipping through the channels and it was the days before like the guides on the DVRs, so you had like no idea what it was. And you just kind of saw that, maybe something from that.
Yeah, I just don't know.
Yeah. I will also say too, because that scene took place in Amarillo, Texas. I guess Amarillo, Texas does not look like that.
Well, you mean to tell me that they just found somewhere in Arizona or the deserts of California to film that and pretended it was Texas?
Yes, yes.
For shame, Daniel.
I
Besmirching these fine people.
I know, I know. Yeah. Well, I guess we should get into the plot of the movie. Um,
Yeah. So Robert De Niro is here slumming it as Jack Walsh, who is a bounty hunter and former police officer. And for the quality of movie this is, it feels like he is miscast. Did you agree with that? Like,
yeah, I thought so too. Yeah, they. I mean, I know they were. I think they were probably trying to go for like a like tough guy fish out of water sort of feel with it, but I just I this was, of course, you have to keep in mind this was before what was it, Meet the Parents, I think, was like the first real big comedy that De Niro was in, where people were like, oh, he actually has some comedic chops, like, and that really didn't come through in this movie, I don't think.
no. And the reason he had good comedic chops in the other one was because he was just weird in that one. And also because he
Yeah,
was playing off of Ben Stiller, who does have comedic chops.
yeah,
But so he's a bounty hunter, and there's this oddly, what I'll call needlessly elaborate plot line about a mob accountant who donated a bunch of a mobster's money and is now on the run. And uh, Jack has until Friday at midnight to deliver him to the bail bondsman.
yeah. And the bail bondsman's played by Joe Pantoliano, who most people will remember as Cypher from The Matrix.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Um, and but yeah, so he's got like 4 or 5 days to find this accountant. Well, I guess we should say the accountant's Charles Grodin.
Yep.
Um, and he finds out that he's in New York, and so he tries to. So
Oh,
he
and they're in LA.
yeah, and
Distillery.
they're in LA. Yeah, they're in LA. So he's yeah. So De Niro's in LA, and then he goes to New York and he gets Grodin, and he's got to take him back to LA. Well, the problem is Grodin. They go to the airport and they're on the airplane, and Grodin's sitting there acting like he's afraid of flying and he's afraid of heights and he's
I can't be on
claustrophobic.
this plane.
Yeah, I can't be on this plane. And he has a little anxiety attack or panic attack, and they have to get off the plane, so they end up taking a train, and it's so the rest of the movie is just this wild hodgepodge of him trying to he's so one of the things that De Niro does is he steals a badge from an FBI agent, because the FBI agent's also looking for Grodin because they want to bring down the mob guy. And so De Niro's got the FBI after him because he stole an FBI agent's badge and ID, and he put his picture over the ID and is pretending to be him. Um, and on top of that, also the mob guys are after him. So they've got all of these people after
Oh,
him, and he's
and a rival bounty hunter who Robert De Niro knocked out in the first scene together.
right. Yes. Yeah. And that the bounty hunter is played by John Ashton, who was in Beverly Hills Cop. Um, and I should also note the director of Beverly Hills Cop is also the director of this movie. Yeah, and so he's always trying to stay one step ahead of everybody because he wants to get Grodin to LA and he can collect his $100,000 bounty. And
Which he's going to use to open a coffee shop.
yes, yeah, and of course Grodin, who's an accountant's just like, oh, you want to do restaurants, those are really hard, um, and I think that part of the reason, like, part of the issue I think we both had with this was that uh, Grodin is too much of a straight man for De Niro. Like,
Yeah, this is straight man and straight man.
yeah,
And it's weird because if you look at it objectively, on the one hand, you have De Niro, who's playing a very much a loose cannon. Like he's willing to, like he knocks people out all over the place. He has no compunctions about stealing an ID from a federal agent and impersonating him during an arrest.
yeah,
Has no problem with breaking into people's houses in the course of his bounty hunting work. But we later learn that he's is a sad guy who lost his job on the Chicago police force because of the very mobster that Grodin has the materials to bring down.
yeah,
And we
yeah.
have a what seems like it should be a heartfelt scene with his family in Chicago when he shows up needing money to continue their journey west. It just doesn't elicit a reaction at all from you.
No, no, and yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, the scene, yeah, where he's arguing with his ex-wife, and yeah, that didn't seem, like whatever. And then he sees his daughter for the first time, and what was it? What did he say? 9 years? Is that
9 years, yeah. I
9
think
years, yeah. It's just like, oh, okay.
that is certainly a scene that is happening.
Yeah.
And but like De Niro being like a real actor who doesn't like go too far for the fences, he's playing a very realistic, restrained part, which doesn't work because you have Grodin, who, I'm sorry, I don't know the man. I've seen him in a few things. He is kind of Dollar General Chevy Chase.
He is. Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
not to be mean, but that's how he just comes off. Like he is.
Yeah.
He is a blander form of Chevy Chase, and Chevy Chase isn't necessarily the most flavorful comedy actor in the world. He just is, but he's very good at, because he doesn't really have to act too hard, would be playing a neurotic asshole.
Yeah. Well, not a whole lot of acting is needed on it from him on that if he's
Nope.
playing somebody like that.
Not by all accounts that I've ever heard of him.
Yeah.
Where and like Grodin's character on paper he seems like, I think his character is kind of all over the place because they're trying to, I don't know if it's a failure in the script where they're trying to make him do whatever they need for the scene to proceed, or if they just didn't come across well in the performance. But I think that the movie wants us to be sympathetic with him, but he's also a Weasley little shit. Like, whatever, we're not monetized. He's a Weasley little shit. Because
Yeah.
like the whole thing about I can't be on this plane. That was an act. He later tries to escape on a biplane.
Yeah. Yeah.
When he finds out that he's working for a mobster, he ends up donating most of that money to a charity of his choice.
Yeah.
Because he's a good guy, question mark.
Yeah, but then then they go into they need money, and they go into this bar and pretending to be federal agents and investigating counterfeiting. We found a bunch of counterfeit 20s, and they do this whole con where they steal like $40.
I think that's kind of the issue. Is there's not really actually, the character I found the most sympathetic was the rival bounty hunter, and that was mostly just because he was such an underdog.
Yeah.
Not that he was a great character or anything, just I felt sorry for the man just for constantly getting outmaneuvered and betrayed.
Yeah. Yeah, it was, I had a really hard time getting into this. And I think you had the same thing that I did. Like, I mean, we both got about halfway through the movie and we're like, we still have another hour of this.
Yeah, because it's like planes, trains, and automobiles mashed up with a low energy movie with two low energy actors.
Yeah.
And so I think that, and I started thinking of like how I would cast it and different actors that you could have put in that would have made things much more interesting. Like Chevy Chase and Charles Grodin's role is like a no brainer. you just play into the neuroticism.
Yeah. Yeah, and I don't know who else you would get to play De Niro. Like,
I had a couple ideas. Stallone would have been nice because he would have been tough, but also kind of faintly ridiculous.
Yeah. Maybe Schwarzenegger.
Yeah, Schwarzenegger could have worked.
Yeah.
This would have been about the right time of his career to do something kind of schlocky like this.
Yeah, and I think he'd already done. I think he'd done Twins, so he could do comedy if he needed to.
Yeah. Let's see here. I could have seen Bruce Willis in the main role.
Yeah. Yeah. There are any number of actors I think could have played the part a lot better.
My last bit of fantasy casting, Rick Moranis as the Charles Grodin character, he just really ramp up the neuroticism and nerdiness of it.
Yeah. Well, at that point, then he'd be like Louis Tully from Ghostbusters.
Yeah, pretty much. Again, I think the problem is that both characters were kind of awful people, and so I didn't necessarily care whether they lived or died.
Yeah, that's true.
And also, it was way too elaborate. Like they had to tie in the mobster who Grodin had the materials to bring down, with De Niro getting kicked off of the force, which felt a little bit contrived.
Yeah.
And the only way that De Niro avoided seeing the inside of a penitentiary for the rest of his life was cooperating on this bust with the FBI. And it almost seems like that was added because like, oh crap, we wrote ourselves into a corner. How the hell is De Niro ever going to be able to open his coffee shop?
Yeah. Yeah, because they said like, well, impersonating a federal agent that gives you 10 years. Like,
yeah. I think that the better version of this would have been like, what if what if De Niro had been hired by the mobster and then he has a moral quandary, and you give him something like I think the thing is that like De Niro doesn't really have anything to go for. Like he has no direction in his life. He's just living paycheck to paycheck, and this coffee shop thing seems to come out of nowhere because there's no sign. Like maybe if there'd been a scene where he made an espresso for himself or something like that, like some indication he actually likes coffee.
Yeah, or maybe like like where he's sitting in his car and he's looking over like literature about opening a coffee shop. Yeah,
right.
just a little hint. Yeah.
All right, some indication that it's not just like a spontaneous decision.
Yeah.
Now, I looked into this movie a bit, just a little bit of Wikipedia research, and it didn't ever have a sequel, but there were a set of 3 TV movies that were released in 1994 that didn't bring back De Niro or Grodin, but apparently brought back some other minor characters.
Ooh.
I have never heard of these before or since. I'm going to assume that they were of about the same middling quality as the movie itself.
Yeah, I would guess so. Yeah. And I'm probably almost 100% certain you probably can't find them anywhere on physical media or streaming or anywhere like that.
That, what those are? Those would be like perfect Tubi fodder.
Yes, they would be. Yeah.
The other thing about this movie is that it was actually fairly expensive for the time. $35 million budget for 1988.
Wow.
And most of that was there were some stunt scenes that were like probably the best part of the movie, but were also entirely unnecessary and didn't actually move the plot forward.
Yeah.
So it's like, man, and it's kind of a shame because in the first 20 minutes or so, I was kind of enjoying De Niro, like you seeing the tricks of the trade, like tapping the phone and using and like listening to the dial tones to figure out the phone number that his ex-wife was calling. Actually seeing how a lockpick of the arrow worked. It's like there was something here, but they just couldn't capitalize on it.
Yeah. Uh, it's unfortunate because I mean the premise for the movie is really good. I mean it's a great premise. But I think like you were saying, it got bogged down with too many plot elements and too many too many moving parts to kind of keep track of.
Yeah.
And yeah,
There's a tight 90-minute movie in here somewhere.
yeah. I think maybe if you uh yeah, like you said, like maybe get rid of the the whole bounty hunting element and just have him be like working for the mob boss.
Oh yeah, yeah, uh, like have him be a capo or something like that, and you give him a reason to question his loyalty to the mob boss. Then now you've tied him into the story more.
Yeah. Yeah, and you could probably cut about 20 or 30 minutes out of the movie.
Yeah. Well, you know what the beauty of a fairly generic premise like this is?
Yeah.
Anytime you feel like it, you could just use that as a starting point and develop from it.
Yeah. Yeah, there are multiple avenues you could take. Yeah.
Yep. So, if in a couple of years you see a movie called Running at Midnight or a book called Running at Midnight
Yeah.
by D.B. Fassbinder and or Daniel Parker, now you know.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, moving up the quality ladder, Daniel, you caught up
Yes.
on a movie that just hit streaming.
Yes, I did. And watched another movie that you saw in the theater that I didn't, and finally got to watch and enjoy. Yeah, Transformers One, which hit Paramount Plus last week, I believe. Um, and Yeah, I enjoyed this movie a lot. I think it's I would say probably better than any of the live action movies. Certainly, even better than like Bumblebee or the first Bayformers movie. Um,
It did have the unfair advantage of not having to come up with a bunch of human characters.
yes, exactly. Yeah, because it's entirely on Cybertron, which is a first, I think,
Mhm.
or at least the most of the time they're on Earth. Because the whole premise behind it is the Autobots and the Decepticons are at war, and Cybertron is out of resources, and so they go to Earth to find resources and
Mhm.
continue their war on Earth and all that. But this one is, of course, the origin story of Optimus Prime, or as he's known through the entirety of the movie, Orion Pax, and D16, who of course later becomes Megatron. Their friendship and being these miners, and then of course Orion Pax, he wants to be more than just a miner. He wants to be, he wants to help their leaders, Sentinel Prime, find the matrix of leadership, and help them bring Energon back to Cybertron so they don't have to keep mining for it all the time. But there's of course a really big twist in there where they find out that Sentinel Prime, much like his counterpart in the Michael Bay movies, he's a bad guy. And their entire civilization and everything that they have been fighting, they've been working for, is a total lie. And Orion Pax and D16 handle it in different ways. Let's just say.
Yeah, one can kind of take it. The other one kind of has his worldview shattered.
Yeah, yeah. And of course, we meet a lot of the other classic Transformers characters along the way, like Bumblebee, although he's not called Bumblebee, and it's B 117, I think. Is that right?
Uh,
Um,
Man, I don't remember. Most of these
yeah.
characters, I just thought of them as their eventual names because I am very much a Transformers tourist.
Yeah, yeah. And hey, Ninja, good to see you. And yes, I agree. It's it's right up there. Yeah. Um, and of course he's and then you have Alita One, who I will say one of the negatives I have of the movie is her being a little too much of a girl boss, and uh, in the cringy Marvel esque humor, like it just didn't come across very well. I wasn't really laughing at it. I was just kind of like, okay.
Yeah, I think when I was in the theater, the kids laughed at it. So I guess, yeah, if it works for them and it's mostly a kids movie, I can forgive it.
Yeah, yeah. But no, I agree with you that this was a really great movie, and it did not deserve to bomb. It should have been a much bigger success at the box office. It's kind of sad it wasn't, because I would have loved to have seen sequels to this. I would have loved to have seen Transformers 2, where they're the Autobots and the Decepticons actually fighting each other, or they're fighting the Quintessons, or whatever it is that whatever they had planned for a sequel.
It's is possible that but since they were planning this as a sequel, they might have been far enough along with the sequel to continue production of it. I guess it depends on what the toy sales did
Yeah,
ultimately.
yeah,
Um, but I think that unfortunately with the Transformers brand, they're currently eating their seed corn.
yeah.
I think there's a lot of market signals that a lot of studios didn't get properly because of the pandemic. Um, and so your Bumblebee, I want to say, came out in 2020.
No, it was
Was it
like
2019?
20. I thought it was older than that. I want
Bumblebee
to say that
movie, 2018. Okay,
2018. Okay, yeah,
okay. Well, that one kind of underperformed.
yeah.
Then you had the Beast,
Rise of the
Rise of the
Rise of the
Beast. Yeah,
Beast. Yeah.
which that okay. So never mind. This is not this is not the problem of movies underperforming because of the pandemic and them not realizing that they would have underperformed anyway. I
Ye-
think they've just kind of tired out the brand.
I think so too. Yeah. Yeah, they and I think this should be a lesson to every like other studios that have major franchises like this. If you tire out a brand or you alienate an audience, even if you make something that's really good, chances are that audience is not going to turn out to see it.
I'm going to add on to that another observation. So this and Bumblebee, I would say, are from my limited knowledge and experience, the ones that were designed to appeal most to the Transformers faithful.
Yeah.
I think that, and no offense to Ninja, I think that there aren't necessarily enough of them to carry a huge movie by itself. I think that because like Rise of the Beasts didn't do as well as like say The Last Night or whatnot, but it did do better than Bumblebee and it did do better than this. So I think that they had a audience cultivated who weren't so much interested in the characters as they liked big CGI action movies with scantily clad ladies running around screaming and badass guys doing badass things
Yeah.
and or being Shia LaBeouf. You
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, yeah, that's more than, yeah, that's probably likely too. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I
Kind of
mean,
kind of like how if you came out with like a Green Arrow. Now Green Arrow is a bad example because he had a TV show. It's like if you came out with a well, actually Blue Beetle movie. Who's going to
mm,
possibly care about a Blue Beetle movie? Core DC fans. Are there enough core DC fans at this point to carry a Blue Beetle movie? Apparently not.
no, yeah. Yeah, or yeah, yeah, it's unfortunate, because again, like I said, I think this movie deserved a lot more attention, much like another Paramount movie that came out last year or the year before, Dungeons and Dragons.
Last
Uh,
year, yeah.
last year, yeah.
Yep. Where that one was just both of these were poorly marketed.
Hmm.
And just a quick digression, it sounds like just from initial reviews I'm hearing that that the Wicked movie is much better than the marketing would lead you to believe.
Hmm.
At least according to Chris Gore and Alan Ng, and I tend to trust their judgment on this type of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, Ninja says, yeah, so that makes sense. They made Transformers films to be schlock since 2007. So anything that is not schlock is not going to appeal. Yeah, that's
Yeah, it's the unfortunate fact.
yeah.
But I think that there are just a lot of brands right now that need to take 5 years off. But unfortunately, because this, Paramount is in financial trouble and a lot of the other studios are in financial trouble, they can't afford to let them rest, which just means they're going to keep speeding up their heat death.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, I definitely recommend this movie. Like I said, it's on Paramount Plus if you have it. Although if you're so inclined, I mean, you could get it, buy it digitally, or I don't know if it's available on physical media or not. But
Let's find out. But yeah, I would say this is worth owning. I'd give this a watch again at some point.
yeah.
If only to show other people.
Oh yeah, yeah. The other thing too I noticed was Megatron kind of reminded me of a bit of like a sort of like a revolutionary leader, in like some third world country
Mhm.
who like, oh, we're gonna take on this tyrannical dictator, and then he becomes the tyrannical dictator.
It's like that one episode of either The Outer Limits or The Twilight Zone where the guy takes over Cuba and he becomes Castro by the end of it.
Yeah.
Okay, so I don't see Transformers 1 being available physically yet, but it does look like it's available for digital.
Okay. Yeah.
Or, get a month of Paramount Plus.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I think the ad-supported tier of Paramount Plus isn't that much.
It's $6.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is coincidentally about the same cost as renting it to watch once. So make of that what you will.
Yeah. And Ninja says he's hopeful that War of the Rohirrim is not going to be both a failure and bomb, though he doubts that it's going to be a successful. Sonic 3 is coming out the next week. Ooh, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to make some advanced predictions here. From what I have heard, the American marketing is way more girl bossy than the international marketing for War of the Rohirrim. Rohirrim, however you pronounce that.
Yeah.
So it is very possible that it is American marketers once again being stupid and hyping up the wrong aspects of the movie. Because like Transformers 1, now I didn't see any trailers for this, but I'm told that between the art style and what they hyped up for it, it looked like it was a dumb kids movie instead of being a psychological story of two brothers coming to hate one another.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember the early on they were circulating clips with the scene when they get they're brought before the group that's later called the Decepticons, who are led by Starscream, and Bumblebee making some weird cracking jokes, and it's like, oh geez. Just really cringe humor, and it's like, oh, is that the whole movie?
I'm going to say it. There's a significant part of people in marketing who don't know the audience and don't know their jobs. See 2024 election results.
Yeah.
But okay. And also I think that what I suspect is that for a little bit we're going to see movies that don't necessarily open very huge but get some sort of decent traction based on word of mouth because the marketing hurt them so bad. And that's kind of the opposite job that marketing is supposed to do, isn't it? I mean, maybe I'm old-fashioned that way.
Yeah. Anti-marketing. Yeah.
Yeah. But then again, even classic marketing can't save every movie. Which brings us to the one we decided to call our classic of the week.
Or new movie of the week.
Oh yeah, new movie. It is
whatever.
a movie of the week. Van
Yes.
Helsing starring Hugh Jackman.
Yeah. I actually remember seeing this movie in the theater, oddly enough. And I can't remember. I can't remember if I've seen it since then. This might be the first time I've watched it since then.
I was aware of it when it came out. I actually remember that there was a on Newgrounds at the time. Somebody did a parody movie called Van Helsing that I thought was kind of interesting. But of course, like a lot of Flash projects from back then, they had a part one that kind of covered the first part of the movie. Like I don't think they even got to Mr. Hyde, and then they never continued it.
Oh,
But I remembered it since then, just because it has been such a like not because it was an amazing Flash cartoon, but just because I said, "Oh, somebody's copying the people who are making fun of the Matrix right now. Cool.
yeah.
Wonder where this is going to go. Nowhere. Okay."
Yeah, and
Um,
Ninja's a fan of the movie.
yeah. So I felt like this was a big contrast between this and our other mainline movie of the week, Midnight Run,
Yeah,
where I think that they're both kind of dumb, but this is like fun dumb.
yeah.
I forget what movie it was I saw last year, but I said, "Man, I don't think I've been so happy to have my intelligence insulted lately." But I don't remember which movie that was a review for, but that definitely applies here.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. It's a fun schlocky action movie with most of the Universal monsters, excluding the Mummy, and that's largely because the director of this movie also directed the first two Brendan Fraser Mummy movies.
Right. And this, I don't know what the backstory is behind this one. Um, but it feels like somebody at Universal said, "Well, shoot, they managed to make a lot of money off of what's probably objectively our least interesting monster. Let's give him the keys to the kingdom."
Yeah. Um, so I guess we'll get into the plot of the movie. The movie opens with a recreation of the famous scene from the Frankenstein, the original Universal Frankenstein movie with Boris Karloff, and he's bringing, Dr. Frankenstein's bringing his creation to life, and then he gets a visit from Dracula.
Played by Richard Roxburgh, who, man, no wonder this movie cost $170 million to make, because every time they did a take, the man had eaten the entire scenery.
Yeah. Oh yeah, yeah.
Let's hear, what else was he in? Oh, he was in Moulin Rouge. Oh, he was the Duke who was going to marry what's her name?
Oh, Nicole Kidman.
I think so. Let's
Uh,
find. Yeah, the Duke. Yeah,
yeah, and
which shows that he actually has range in terms of being a over the top foghorn actor, because in that one he was much more genteel. With this one he was, "I am Dracula." He didn't quite go blah blah blah. That's because, as they established in the Hotel Transylvania movies, Dracula doesn't really go blah blah blah.
right, yeah. And hey, Garcos, good to see you.
Hey man.
And Ninja says it was a dream film by the director. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, he also dedicated it to his dad, who I guess had passed.
Yeah. Yeah. So then we come to find out that Dracula is basically the one who's bankrolling Frankenstein's experiments, and that's because Dracula has his own motivations for wanting Frankenstein to create his creature,
Right. Be able to give life to things.
yes. But then you had the whole thing with the townspeople, going after Frankenstein and the creature, and then they did the whole thing at the windmill, and
Hmm.
um, then we cut to a year later, and we meet Van Helsing, who's played by Hugh Jackman, and he's in Paris hunting Mr. Hyde.
Yeah. Now you might go, wait a second, these characters didn't really exist at the same time. Shut up, nerd.
Yeah.
And what next will be telling me that the Vatican doesn't operate a multi-faith monster hunting society.
Yeah. With their own little Q branch.
Yes. But okay, so we've seen some bad CGI in some recent movies lately.
Yeah.
I okay, so you know how the CGI in Jurassic Park has aged pretty well because it had good fundamentals behind it, even if it didn't have the poly count.
Yeah, and they didn't linger on any shots too.
Yeah. Now I'm not going to even claim that this can even lick Jurassic Park's boot, but even though it isn't the best, like like if you saw this if this was a bunch of like modern cutscenes, you would probably like see people clipping it on YouTube to like make fun of it. Like this stupid video game has worse graphics than da da da. Right?
Yeah.
But there is something about the way that the characters move. Like,
Yeah.
spoiler alert: Mr. Hyde is only in the one scene.
Yeah.
But the way he moves is actually fluid. He looks like he has weight to him most of the time.
Yeah.
His face is expressive and animated. I actually really enjoyed that fight scene.
Yeah, I did too. And the other thing too, you'll notice is that the lighting was very dark in that
Which
scene.
always
So
helps.
yeah, but yeah, it was, and it wasn't like an easy like victory for Van Helsing. Like he actually had to work for it.
Yeah, but like he's known across Europe. People when he shows up, people die. So that's kind of his cross to bear.
Yeah, and yeah, which he of course he was not unable to capture Mr. Hyde, who of course right before he dies he turns back into Dr. Jekyll.
Yep, bad timing that.
Yeah, yeah. So then he goes back to the Vatican, and then we learn that he actually sh- showed up on the doorsteps of the Vatican with with no memory of who he was, uh, and so he basically just got like recruited into this holy order or whatever it was to like DB was saying, this multi-faith kind of like shield type organization that hunts monsters. um and then he's given his new mission, which is to go to Transylvania, where he has to stop Count Dracula because he's going after the members of this family who their ancestor pledged to kill Dracula, um, and if they don't, none of them can get into heaven. They'll be stuck in purgatory.
Which boy, like, is that? I actually found myself thinking, wait, is that a thing you can do? And then the movie just kept going. So it's like, stop questioning things.
Yeah.
Like, wait, what? Did you get a benefit from promising this to your family? No, apparently none whatsoever. That's why Van Helsing had to show up and be the hero.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Ninja mentions, yeah, they meet Professor Lupin's great grandfather, who was a friar. Yeah, that's Carl.
Yes, Carl. So what I found very refreshing about this movie, and it kind of made me miss 2000 schlock. is that Hugh Jackman as Van Helsing is very quiet in a lot of scenes. Like a lot of people will often talk to him more than he talks,
Yeah.
or talk at him in case of a couple of exposition dumps. But he gets off a couple of one-liners, but like no more than a James Bond character would, or James Bond actor would.
Yeah.
But Carl, he is like pure unadulterated comic relief, but he's like the classic kind of comic relief where most of his jokes kind of make sense for the scene. He's a nerdy, lonely friar who's only ever known the inside of the Vatican. So when he's kind of awkward and kind of jocular, it kind of makes sense, right?
Yeah.
And everybody else takes everything seriously. And this is where the post-Marvel movies have failed, is that when things get serious, he continues to he can switch and start taking things seriously. Now, I know that this is a radical concept in modern movie making.
Yeah.
But it's not like you had what's his name? It's not like he had Van Helsing or Kate Beckinsale's character quipping the entire time they were fighting these horrific monsters.
Right. Yeah. Yes, which was a good thing. And speaking of Kate Beckinsale's character, she plays Anna Valerius, I believe is her last name. And she and her brother are the last two descendants from this family. And when we first meet them, the brother, they're hunting a werewolf, and then things happen, and then the brother gets bitten by a werewolf, and now he's turning into one.
Yeah, and what I got to say, and no disrespect to the characters or the actors, they come off as extremely incompetent. Like they are not good at their jobs in any way.
Yeah.
Especially considering that Van Helsing just kind of strolls into town and solves the problem they've been fighting for generations in a couple of afternoons.
Yeah. 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 And so then the other part of course, not only do you have Dracula, but you also have his brides, who attack the village, and Van Helsing manages to kill one of them, which Dracula doesn't take too kindly to.
Nope. Actually, so I'm going to take a step back. What the incompetence of the twins or the brother and sister really reminded me of.
Yeah.
So you notice how in a lot of fantasy literature, if it's directed at men, princes don't feature very prominently, and if they do, they're either enemies or they're like kind of ineffectual.
Yeah.
I kind of realized that that's because if you're doing a hero's journey type story, the prince is at best a hindrance, and at worst, if the prince is actually good at his job, why do you need the hero?
Yeah.
Where the princess is somebody who the prince can, prove himself to. The prince would be at best fodder to be a sidekick or something.
Right. Yeah.
That really struck me with this one is, that's what Mr. Wolfman Valerius is basically reduced to. Like, you could have very easily seen a movie where he was the main character, but nope, show.
Yeah.
But so I don't necessarily know that we want to get into the full blow by blow of the entire plot.
Right. Yeah.
Because I think that we both do ultimately recommend this if you're in the mood for something insane.
Yes. Yeah.
But so just some highlights. They're planning to use not Dracula. Dracula is planning to use the Frankenstein technology to unleash an army of vampire monsters. Van Helsing ends up with the Wolfman's curse.
Yeah.
And they end up teaming up with the Frankenstein's monster, who is just the most tortured. Like, and he's the only actor in the movie who's really giving
Yeah.
Richard Roxburgh competition in the hammy acting competition.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. Ninja mentions the light grenade. Yeah.
The light grenade was great. I know what it's for now.
Yeah.
There's just a lot of little nice payoffs and setups and everything.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
is this a smart movie? Absolutely not.
No.
But is it exciting? Sexy at times? Do you believe that the characters actually care about what's going on around them and are invested in what's happening to them? Does it have some cool ideas visually that, while the effects of 2004 can't always render them properly, the idea is there? I would say yes to all the above.
Yes, I would too. Yeah. Yeah. This is a fun movie. I think at the time I enjoyed it when I first saw it. Can't remember who I saw it with, but I don't think they enjoyed it very much. But that's probably because it was a little too schlocky and hammy for them.
I think also in 2004, this movie would have just come off as yet another schlocky, over the top Hollywood movie, where in 2024, it's like, oh my God, characters who actually respect what's going on around them.
Yeah.
Heterosexual romantic interests where nobody's feeling shamed for being interested in each other.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
you're like dirty water to a drowning man, or to be dirty water to a dying, or to a man dying of thirst.
Yeah. 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 And Ninja says best. Yeah, it's a fun movie. Yeah.
Yeah, just go into it with the right mindset. Now, I do have a spoilery thought. So, if you don't want to have anything about the movie spoiled, go watch it on Netflix. It's currently available there.
Yeah.
I'm going to give people who might be watching this later while doing something else, going to give you 5 seconds.
Mhm.
5, 4, 3, 2, and 1.
Mm.
Okay, so did it strike you as a weird choice to kill Kate Beckinsale's character at the end?
Yeah, it did. Yeah. Yeah, I will say if there's one black spot on this movie, it would be that.
Yeah, and I'm trying to decide if they had a sequel in mind with this one, because that very much seems like a choice you would make if you're just trying to put it in the ground.
Yeah.
Because, like, while it does end with the two leads riding off into the sunset, which could imply future adventures, but then again, Indiana Jones 3 ended like that, and that was clearly meant to be the end of things.
Yeah.
Despite other people's bad choices later.
Yeah. Yeah, I kind of wonder that too. If or maybe the intention was that if there was a sequel, that it would be more episodic, where it basically like a completely separate story, a separate self-contained story that doesn't bleed off from this movie.
Very possible. I can't think of what normal Universal monsters you'd really have left. Was Creature from the Black Lagoon one of theirs?
Yeah, it
Or
was. Yeah.
okay. I could see you doing something with that.
Yeah.
Also, you still have Frankenstein running around.
Yeah.
Dracula's dead, which means that all other vampires are dead.
Yeah. Unless they found a way to bring him back.
That's true. You could always have. There's always room for muckery, after all.
Yeah.
You could have more Wolfmen, but that would like the Wolfman seemed like it was sort of a weird Pokemon rock paper scissors thing, where Wolfmen were more of a danger to Dracula than they were to the humans.
Yeah.
So that would also kind of feel like a step backwards.
The only other thing I could think of would be like if they did like a time jump of some, like if they tied it,
Mm-hmm.
maybe tied it with the Mummy and did like a time jump sort of thing.
Oh yeah, like move it ahead a while. Yeah, and since so they very heavily imply, but they never actually state that Hugh Jackman's character is like the Archangel Gabriel
Yeah, yeah. Dracula even calls him Gabriel.
several times, and like
Yeah,
he's lost his memory. But he has flashes of having fought at historical battles. Like
yeah,
that was my best interpretation of what he was he was just an amnesiac archangel. Now why he basically would be fighting at human scale and be vulnerable to the Wolfman's curse is beyond me, but
yeah. But
that's probably some um that's probably some lore that
yeah,
they could have developed there.
yeah. And Ninja says there were plans for a sequel, but the movie bombed. And then oh, Invisible Man. Oh yeah, I forgot about him.
Right, you could have done something with him.
Yeah.
Um yeah,
But
so but overall, even though this is all there is and all there ever will be, I mean, okay, this or Tom Cruise is The Mummy. Which one would you recommend people watch?
oh, this one.
Right. Like as far as aborted attempts to get a new Universal Monster Universe going, this is by far the most entertaining of them.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Just because
definitely. Yeah.
it's schlocky, it goes for the fences. I forgot to mention how refreshing it was to just have a soundtrack that was a soundtrack with classical instruments. Uh,
Yeah.
like there was no like sudden, I don't know, Mr. Blue Sky, Blue Sky. At some point.
Yeah, or some random rap song that gets thrown in there.
Yep. Yo, motherfucker, it's Van Helsing. Van Helsing in the house.
Yo.
Let's see, 2004. Who would they have gotten in 2004? Was that before 50 Cent? Or
It could have been 50 Cent or
yeah.
or I don't know if Kanye was big yet.
I think this was pre-Kanye.
Okay. Yeah.
I could be wrong. At least it was before I knew about Kanye, but that
Yeah.
doesn't say much.
Yeah.
Digressions aside,
Yeah.
give this a watch. It's a good fun. If you basically, I figure if you are a fan of our channel and enjoy our opinions about movies, this is the type of movie that we can full-heartedly say you should go watch.
Indeed. Yes. Yeah. Well, I think we've said all we've needed to say for tonight.
Indeed.
Well, thank you everybody for tuning in. We appreciate it as always. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, ring the bell, and if you missed the beginning of the show, just a quick reminder: with next week being Thanksgiving, we're taking the week off. So
yeah, Thursday is usually a night that gets us away from conflicts, but not this year,
no,
or not this time of year.
indeed, yes, but yeah. So happy Thanksgiving, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks. Night,
Yep.
everybody.
Not everyone.